Tom Campbell here. If you find something of significant value in our videos, please consider supporting their production through our Patreon account or through a one-time donation. The links are in the description below. Thank you and enjoy the video. Okay, well, this is an open Q&A. That means that there is no particular topics that we need to stick to. You can ask any sort of question that you like, and I encourage you to ask whatever it is that you really want to know. Don't feel like it has to be a polite question. It can be an impolite question. That's just fine, as long as it's something that you really would like to know. So hard questions are welcome, and there's nothing, that's off the table. So we'll just, I'll start it with that. A lot of times people feel like they're reticent to ask a question that is, maybe doesn't have a happy answer or something, but feel free to ask those kinds of things. I always have the right to not answer, but that probably won't happen. I tend to, if I have any information, I will share it with you on any of these questions. So go ahead, hands up. Now we get to those hands in the order that they go up. I think Donna has a cue with hands up, so she knows whose hand got up first. So if you want to get a question, just get that hand up and eventually it'll come to you in the queue.
Okay, Armanda, if you will go ahead.
Hi, Tom. It's great to see you. It's been a long time. First of all, I wanted to tell you thank you. Thank you for everything.
You're very welcome,
MBT
Armanda.
is just amazing. It's just been a lifesaver. So my question is, if a free will awareness unit has an extremely difficult mental illness, such as OCD, during this experience packet, and the IOUC did not plan for the free will awareness unit to have OCD, but rather it's how randomness interacted with the rule set, then suppose the LCS just allows it to unfold as it would, even if the challenge is more than the free will awareness unit can bear at times, many times. Is it always the case that the LCS will never intervene and ameliorate the situation? Or does it allow for exceptions? If so, how? And I have a second part to this. Because the OCD causes many intrusive, terrifying thoughts and compulsions against the will of the sufferer, every waking hour pretty much, causing extreme fear, anxiety, and depression. What kind of data stream is the free will awareness unit receiving? So there's two parts to that question.
Okay. The first part is that, yes, sometimes the system makes exceptions and does interfere to change things. That is probably, in the margins. It doesn't happen all the time. It doesn't make a lot of exceptions. Mostly things happen here and free will runs its course. Probabilities happen and then we get to deal with it. And we evolve based on how we deal with it. Now, with your daughter's case, it's not only she that has to deal with it, but you have to deal with it, and everybody else that she interacts with also have to deal with it. And there's learning there, for everyone. So that's just sort of the way the system works. Now, that sounds pretty harsh until you realize that, this is one out of thousands of life experience packets. And sometimes the probabilities just don't turn out real well. Most of the time they do. So every once in a while, rarely, but every once in a while, something really, really hard comes along. And it just is a hard thing. And it's hard for everybody. It's hard for her. It's hard for you. It's hard for everybody around her that has to interact with her. but hard things happen. And when hard things happen, they actually produce a much larger potential for growth. Because if you overcome something difficult, you'll grow a whole lot more than if you just do okay with something that was really, really simple. So it cuts both ways. You see, it's a difficult thing, but if you get a really, really difficult thing and you don't really make a lot of gains, but you hold your own, you do deal with it and you get through it, well, that may be a much larger gain as far as your quality of consciousness than if you had something really, really easy and you did pretty well with it. So, the system looks and sees, what you're up against, and it realizes that sometimes, it's going to be tough. And you get credit according to the difficulty of what is you're dealing with. So, and that includes her too. She's got a very hard thing to deal with. And if she just struggles with it and gets by, that may be a real big win for her in the bigger picture. So in the bigger picture, those things aren't as horrible as they look like here. They may turn out they're just really hard here. They're really, really difficult here, but they can turn out to be productive. And sometimes the stuff you get here is just really hard. Most of the time, it's not that hard, but sometimes it is. So that's one thing. So yes, there are exceptions though. Sometimes the system will just kind of butt in and change things. And I guess the way to encourage that, which is the other part of that, is how do you get in line for one of those exceptions? Well, that is by doing the best you can and being very positive. That is the way that would put you as high probability of getting that kind of a thing where the system just steps in and fixes things. You have to be very positive. In other words, when you're very positive in a hard situation, that means you have learned most of what there is to learn from that situation because you've mastered it. Now you're in it, you accept it, you're positive in it, you can do well with it. Well, when you get to the point that you've learned that lesson and don't have, you've gotten it, then there's not a whole lot of point in just doing it again and again. So that's when you're most likely to get that big change from the system, is when you've learned and you've accepted it and you can smile, you're happy. Yes, life is hard, but I'm dealing with it, and I'm dealing with it positively. I'm dealing with it even with gratitude that you have what you have. There's always things could be worse. You have what you have and you have gratitude for that, and you're as positive as you can be. And you have this intention that it sure would be nice to move on because you've got this now. Then that's when those miracles happen. So in a way, it kind of, you earn it.
I get it.
Yeah, as long as you're struggling and you haven't learned those lessons yet because you're still, fighting it and struggling with it, then there's still a lot more to learn. And it's not just you and all the people around her, but that's her too.
Right.
You have to come to terms with it and say, all right, this is the way it is. This is the way I am. This is the way she is. All right, now, let's be grateful for the things we can be grateful for. Let's have a positive attitude. So that would be the way to get yourself in line for something to happen that is a big step up, is learn the lesson that's involved. Okay, now the second part. Tell me again, what was the second part?
About what kind of data stream is she getting?
Yeah, okay.
These thoughts are constant and is just so negative. And
a lot of that data stream is not something that she's getting from outside. That's a data stream that she's creating from the inside. So it's she's not getting that
I see,
very dysfunctional data from the system. Right. She's creating that in her own mind. That's the illness. You You
Right.
get stimulation, you take in some things, but then you twist it and you overreact to it and you get upset by it. And a lot of the negative parts to it is what she brings to it. That's, I don't know, what do we just call that? Bad biochemistry or
Right.
something, so that's the problem. And that's where most of that is coming from. It's her own, it's her own interpretation of what's going on. And as she relaxes and accepts it, and when I say not struggle with it, it doesn't mean you accept it in a sense of, oh, it's okay, but you accept it in the sense of that's the way it is. And I need to embrace things the way they are. The things I can't change, I need to deal with in a positive way. Then she will stop doing so much of that, creating the negative things going on. But as much as she's pushing back and struggling against it, then she's going to create more negative things. It's like this. When you fight, you often, when it's a fight, you often get negative results. When you accept and do what you can do, it doesn't mean you just roll over and give up.
Right.
It means you do whatever you can do, then you get more positive results.
Surrender.
Yeah, I guess surrender is maybe a better word. Yeah, surrendering rather than fighting. But it's not surrendering to a terrible outcome. It's just surrendering to an inevitable, to what you have. Yeah, to a reality. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I had thought about these things before, that it's probably not a data stream, but I didn't quite get to the point where, she's actually creating this, but I can see it. I understand it.
Yes.
And thank you. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much.
And one of the best things you can do with her is just be positive. Just be positive. A hug is worth a million words. Just be positive, and that will help.
Yeah. So, I haven't given her a hug in a long time because hugging is not okay because of the illness. So there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, I try to sneak one in.
Mm-hmm. Well, you can give hugs telepathically.
Ear hugs.
Telepathically, you can, in your mind, you can go and provide consolation, provide love, just provide that hug. All the things you get in a hug, you can provide that mind to mind without ever having to touch her. If a touch is something that she interprets as negative.
Right. It's just the illness. It's not her. It's just the illness.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you, Tom. You've been a great help throughout the years. I accidentally read your book. Came across your book online, and this was back in 2014. And I've been watching everything, and I've pretty much read the whole book. But it's been a lifesaver for me. And thank you for all your goodwill.
You're welcome, Amanda.
Thank you.
Tom, we have a question that came in from someone who couldn't attend today, from Michael. And Michael asks, Tom, if you were writing MBT with what you know today, how would it be different? Or would it be different?
Well, I don't know that I can answer that about today because I haven't read MBT for a long time. But the last time I read it, which was probably, I don't know, maybe 4 years ago, every once in a while I read it just to, remind myself of what's in there, what it says, because sometimes I get a little confused as, is that something I said in a book or is that something I said on a YouTube video? And then I have to go read the book just to remind myself of what got said where. But the last time I read it, some few years ago, I didn't want to change any of it. It was just the way it was supposed to be. So I wouldn't rewrite it. much differently at all. Now, over the years, I have added to it a bit, but I've never changed the page numbers because that makes an expensive change in making the book. So I've deleted a few things and added a few things without changing, the page count. And you can look that there's a difference between the 2003 version and the 2015 version. There's probably, I don't know, probably 300 or 400 changes between those two, but mostly they're just tiny little, English nitpicks that got changed. Oh, you should add a hyphen here. Oh, no, you should take a hyphen away there. Or, a tense was wrong or some little minor thing like that. That's what most of them are. But some of them are get rid of this, get rid of these two paragraphs and add something else in its place. And what I added mostly was the science, because I didn't actually come to the conclusions of how to derive quantum physics and relativity and other scientific things until a couple of years after I published the books. So I had some things that I wanted to add to it, and I did that, but that happened probably a decade ago or so. That got added to it. So only the very oldest books are missing that. And again, that boils down to maybe less than a half a dozen paragraphs. So it's not much that has changed. So now I think if I read it again today, I would not really change much of it. The changes would all be, editing changes to make it read smoother, or I might come across a sentence that is too long and break it up into pieces, that kind of editing, just to make it more readable and to improve the quality of the English. I'm sure I could find at least 10 or 20 of those if I read it again. They seem to always pop out of nowhere, no matter how many times you proofread it. You always find something else that needs to be changed. But no big changes, I think.
All right, thank you, Tom. Do you still have your 8-page original draft?
I don't know if I come up with that or not, probably. Yeah, but that's where MBT started. My first draft at MBT was 8.5 pages, but nobody understood what it meant. It was confusing, and everybody's eyes rolled up in their head. And what is this? What does it mean? But I will say that what I wrote first was the first section of book 3. That was the first part that was written. There's 2 sections in each of the books. So it was the first section in book 3 was the first part that was written. And then the other parts got added. The very last thing that I wrote was the last section in book 3. So it's got the first and the last things that I did. Everything else was trying to make it more readable and more easily understandable. So I had to expand this and expand that. And, you talk about meditation, but you don't tell us how to do that. Oh, well, let me add a chapter on meditation, and so on. That's the way it kind of pulled together. But yeah, started with 8.5 pages that nobody actually had any idea what it was I was talking about. Except Pamela. Now, Pamela looked at my 8.5 pages and she
It was my favorite version. It was a painful process because I was his first editor, and I read that book 3 times, and the 8-page was such a breeze to read.
Thank you, Tom. Nambara.
Okay, let me see. I wrote down my question. Let me get it. Okay, my question. Also, hi Tom and hi everybody. I'm very happy to be here, and I can already feel the really nice vibes, and yeah. So my question is, as a kid, I was afraid of faces or bodies on posters, which were out of proportion, meaning much bigger than in reality. Also, I was afraid of Dali's pictures because they were surreal. Now I'm also afraid of pictures or videos in augmented reality. whenever I see this, for example, there is the video of a Japanese mom meeting her dead daughter in virtual reality. My heartbeat gets faster, I get shaky, and I even feel that sometimes I even could faint if I don't stop that situation, if I don't get out of the situation. Do you have any idea what this is?
I can make a guess. You know, there's probably multiple causes for anything, and sometimes a thing will have multiple causes itself, not just one. But I can think of one, and that is when you see something and interact with something that is, how should we say this, not normal, not part of this reality, something that is different, like a head that's too big, or, you know, like you said, things that are out of proportion, or things that really don't belong here. It's different. It's not what you're used to, and that probably is frightening. When people find themselves in situations or engaged with something that is very different than what is part of their reality, there often is fear associated with that. It's the unknown. The unknown is scary because it's unknown. You don't know what's going to happen, or where it might go, or what it might do next, or what it's connected to. So just seeing things that are unusual tends to be frightening, and that is part of our genetic makeup. We are social animals. I could say that differently. We're herd animals. We have evolved to live in societies connected with each other. And you will find that among all the herd animals or the social animals, they have an aversion to things that are different. In other words, things that don't belong, things that aren't right. And that's true of all social animals. They get within their society a sense of what's okay and what is not a threat. And anything that is unusual outside of their normal reality is frightening. I had a couple of golden retrievers, and one day a cardboard box was in my yard, probably blew in from a storm. And those dogs looked at that box and they backed up and they started to bark. That box didn't belong there. And it frightened them because they didn't know what it was. And that's the same, we do that. It's that same reason is why we seem to have an aversion to diversity. We tend to not like people that are different than us. Anything that's different. And the reason we don't like them isn't that really we have something fundamentally negative about them. It's that it's fear. We're afraid. We see something different, and that difference might be something that will get us, might be something that will do something to us. So humans, being social animals, herd animals, also have this sense of anything different is frightening, because you don't know what it is, how it works, or what it might do, and therefore it might be dangerous. So that's, unfortunately, is a burden for us in a world that is very diverse. We see people who aren't like us, and our first reaction is, what's that all about? Is it going to hurt? And that's very, very unfortunate. Now, we can outgrow that to the point that we see people different than us, and we embrace them. We embrace that difference and say how wonderful that we have diversity and all sorts of people, because diversity helps us learn. If you're stuck in a world where everybody's just like you, you're not going to learn much. That's a real dead learning environment. We learn through diversity, running up against things that are new and different and embracing them. So our herd instincts don't help us there. It's something we have to struggle to get beyond. And that is something that's just part of our genetics. The reason it's our genetics is that we used to live in an extremely scary world where there were lots and lots of dangerous things. And we knew the stuff that we were used to, and we understood those dangers. But when something came up that was different, those were dangers we didn't understand. And we learned that if it's new and if it's different, be wary. And that be wary turned into be afraid. Approach with extreme caution, just like my golden retrievers approached that box with extreme caution because they weren't sure what was going to happen there. Now, after they got used to it, well, then it was just a box in the yard. But until then, it was threatening. It was a threatening thing that they just weren't used to. So I think that's probably, you're getting that instinctual aversion to things that are outside of normal and therefore scary. Now, you also may have a sense of having been in some unusual places with your own mind, and you've maybe been in a few places that are scary and seen some things that were frightening as a child or even as an adult. And they may have left you then doubly sensitive to the same thing. So now, you know, that might now kind of trigger that old fear you had, say, when you were 3 or 4 or 5 years old and something strange plopped into your reality and you had a fearful reaction. Now, when you see something strange, it may pull that back up. So you kind of experience some of that old fear again. So those are just two ways that I could think of off the top of my head that might cause you to have that kind of a fearful reaction. And the way to get over it is with courage. Courage is basically the only antidote there is to fear. You know, when you have a fear like that, then you just have to have an intention that when something unusual happens, you're not going to immediately have a panic. Oh, should I run? You know, I need to get away. Instead of having that, you have to be able to say, wait a minute, you know, take a breath, take another one, just look at it, assess it. Is it really that dangerous or not? And after some years of having an intention to do that, you'll find you'll get less and less afraid of it. So at least those are my thoughts. So Nambada, does that fit or any of that work for you, or does that all seem like it's off the point?
My guess was that since I'm kind of person who's daydreaming a lot, so I'm not really here in this. I mean, I love to be somewhere else. If you ask me, I couldn't tell you where I am actually, but I just know that it's beautiful, that it's nice over there. And my guess was that it might be that maybe before I came here in this as this
individuated unit of consciousness.
Exactly.
IUOC.
Exactly. That I maybe it was a task from like a stop, like something which would stop me to not be here, but to go all the time over there. You know what I mean? Do you know what I mean?
I did, right up until that very last comment you made. I was following it real well. When you said be here other than there, what's here and there?
Here is this PMR.
Yeah.
And there is non-physical materiality.
Okay.
So it means because I'm here to be here and to learn here, maybe I put a trap on myself not to go there. That's why I'm afraid of. That's what I thought.
That could be it, but it also could be that when you're there, you are a little more vulnerable when you're there. There may be some vulnerability in that because there's a really big place. And you seem to go to nice places that are very beautiful and comfortable And that's good, but still, if there's a little fear somewhere on the edge of your mind that in that big, deep space of there might be things that are negative or things that could happen. And maybe when you see unusual things, even though they're here, it could trigger some of that.
Yeah. Okay, that's why I'm also like afraid of, I mean, I had experiences where I could like give myself a command, like tonight I want to go out of body. Yeah. I want to be conscious while doing that. And then I get conscious. But the same, when I realize it, I say stop, and then it stops. So I don't know. And yeah.
I think a little fear of the unknown, a little fear of that risk that might be out there that you don't know about is what you're trying to deal with.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I think that's yeah. I really need to work on it, and I also realize that I am a person who thinks I'm not really afraid, but I guess I have a lot of fears. Yeah.
That is typical. Most people are not aware of the fears that they have, particularly people who tend to be somewhat intellectual, who think a lot.
Oh yeah, all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello, Catherine. How are you today?
I'm okay.
Good. How's Max doing?
He's had an up and down week, but he's doing okay today.
Wonderful.
Thank you for asking.
Sure, please go ahead with your question.
I wanted to ask, what is the best way to support a loved one, and in my case, my son Max, who is suffering and has been for 2 years? I know he has his own soul journey, but I'm the one that seems to be walking with him very willingly. I'm out of ideas how to support him mentally, physically, spiritually. I'll take any suggestions.
Okay. Well, tell me a little bit about your son. How old is he, and when did
He's
when did
25.
issues happen?
He's 25. He was super healthy, dancer, actor, never drank, never smoked, and started having headaches, severe pain for 5 months, a whack of surgeries and procedures. He ended up in a coma for 39 days. Doctors wanted to let him die. I felt very strongly he wasn't willing to go. He never stopped breathing. His heart never stopped beating. He came out of the coma, and he's been fighting his way back, trying to learn to speak, trying to learn to eat, trying to learn everything, move, blink, open his eyes. I mean, he's come so far, but yesterday was an example of the suffering. As he was trying to say the word be, and he ended up like weeping with frustration.
Now, when he got those headaches and ended up then in a coma, was there some physical cause that they found for that? Was it stroke or some sort of thing like that?
They're not sure what started the headaches. He was on stage in a combat training exercise when it happened, choreographed fighting. So they're not sure if there was an injury from that. They found some funny lesions on the brain. They don't know if there was other concussions. He may not know. Basically, the doctor said, you're a very interesting case. You don't want to be an interesting case. We don't know what's wrong with you. You're a strong, healthy man. We have no idea what's happening here. And he just got sicker and sicker and sicker.
Well, in a way, that's actually better news. You know, if you have physical problems, they're a little harder to overcome than if the physical part of it is unknown, because that means there's a lot of uncertainty, and where there's a lot of uncertainty, there's more room for change. So I guess the thing to try to do is connect with him mind to mind. Okay, connect with him telepathically, because there you can communicate to him, and there he does get the information better. And basic things you want to say are being the support, the love, the caring, and the compassion that you feel for him, but also that he needs to just focus on coming back one aspect at a time and not be frustrated with the fact that it's going to be a long path. He needs to realize that he is coming back. He can make progress. He has made progress, and he can continue to make progress. But the only thing that can stop his progress is if he gets so frustrated he quits. That will stop the progress. And if you can kind of have these conversations with him, giving him encouragement to keep working, even though he's in a very, very difficult space, and that you'll be there for him, those kinds of things. And that not only you'll be there, but it's important to tell him that you want to be there, that this is what you want to do. Otherwise, he'll feel like he's being a drag on your life, and that will make him feel more negative about himself. And maybe I should just quit and die and go away because I'm just a drag on everybody's life now. Let him know telepathically that that's not the case. Or talk with him. If he understands you but can't just respond, then you can talk to him normally. But in any case, kindness, gentleness, acceptance on your part, and kindness, gentleness, and acceptance toward himself on his part. That there, from what you said, I would say that a lot of progress has been made. It's just frustratingly slow. Well, if he keeps focused and keeps positive, that progress will just continue. It'll just continue and get better and better. And I think in general, the more progress he makes, the easier it'll be to make more progress. And just, you can't push it any faster than, it'll go. So you just keep working at it, stay positive. And again, think of gratitude. Well, you're still here and we're still together. Gratitude for that. You're getting better slowly. Gratitude for that. Think positively. What happens if we think negatively, like, oh, this is awful. This is so horrible. I'm such a burden, and you get this negative thinking. That negative thinking becomes a downward spiral. The more you think negatively, the more you're going to think negatively. One negative thought creates another negative thought. Fear starts to build. If the fear builds and the negativity builds, then it's a descending, that just keeps descending to the point where life is so horrible. But it's not that life is necessarily as horrible as it seems. It's you've worked yourself into this perspective, this interpretation of everything being awful. And then what happens is self-pity takes over. And you get at the bottom of this downward spiral into self-pity, and everything is horrible and everything is negative, and you're such a terrible person. And, that is where you stop getting better. So the whole thing is to keep a positive attitude. Look at the good side. Look at what, look at what is positive. Even if it's just small things you see as positive. Well, you've come back here and you've come back there, and you can continue to come back. And one day you'll maybe be just like you were before, but you have to keep working on it. And the more you come back, the more you will. But it won't be fast, so don't get frustrated. Just keep a positive attitude. And that positive attitude can fix more than anything else. Probably fix a lot more than the doctors could possibly fix with all of their nifty tools and things. That just positive attitude is a great fixer of things. But you have to have it and you have to maintain it. And anything you can do to help him have and maintain that positive attitude is what you should be doing. Yeah, there isn't anything more debilitating and destructive than self-pity.
Mm.
So you don't want to get into feeling bad about yourself. That's basically what self-pity is. You feel bad about yourself. That's a destructive path to be on. And that doesn't lead to any good space. So as much as you can keep him in a positive mind frame, he'll get better. Now, that's not necessarily easy to do. You know,
It's what the kind of things I have been saying. Like, you're 25, you got a long life. Everything you've put your mind to, you've accomplished. You just got to be patient. He's probably sick of me using the patient word.
Yeah. But he has to accept where he is and not feel like that's how unfair that is. Why me? You know, all of that is down the self-pity road. He needs to just accept, okay, this happened for whatever reason. Now, what am I going to do about it? You know, how do I deal with it? And just work on the positiveness of dealing with it, not on the negativeness of woe is me. Why me? You see, so that's, and for somebody who's suffering like that, that is a hard thing to do. You know, this is not necessarily an easy thing to do. Oh, just be positive is a hard task for someone who's living in a lot of pain or a lot of dysfunction. That's difficult. But if he can manage that, then his development, his wellness, his coming back will go a lot faster.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And the second part of my question is, I had an extremely powerful dream when he was in a coma about him at approximately, 38 to 42, running his own home, and he was welcoming a doctor in to stay with him. It's a convention. And is that something I could tell him about and say, Max, I have seen you, like, this is where you could go? Is that helpful? Putting too much pressure? What?
I think you could probably share that with him, and he may or may not give it a lot of credibility. But from what you just said, I give it a lot of credibility. That's why you were shown that. You were shown that vision so you would not go down that downward spiral and give up and find self-pity and all that. You were shown, look, here's where it can go. Here's how it will end up. And you know that. And knowing that gives you strength to carry on. It's just a matter of doing it. Well, you could share that with him. And I feel as certain as you do that that's exactly why you got that, is because that is the probability of where it will go. Not just the probability of where it could possibly go, but the highest probability of where it will go.
Mm.
You see, that's why you were shown that. So I don't think you would be shown that just because it was a 1 in 1,000 probability, possibility. You were shown that because that's likely the way it's going to come out.
Okay.
And that is to give you the strength to keep working with it. And perhaps if he understands that, to give him the strength where he works a little harder and gets more positive. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been given that vision.
I thank you for that. And I'll just leave with a smile. One of the things I noticed in the vision was the fashion was really funny looking. And I remember thinking, wow, those are really odd combinations. Well, I guess this is how we're dressing in the future.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Tom. That's very helpful.
Yeah. Tom Campbell here. MBT Events. Hope you liked this video. We now have well over 1,000 hours of free video on this user-friendly, ad-free YouTube channel. Though these videos are free to our viewers, they represent many thousands of hours in production and editing, and many thousands of dollars invested in video and audio equipment, along with the required computers and software to store and process the raw video into finished products. So far, all of this content has been funded directly out of our own pockets. Be assured, We will always continue to do what we can. It's our life, our purpose, a labor of love that we will continue to pursue as best we can. However, those pockets are not as deep as they used to be. Thus, we are now seeking to augment our resources with support from our viewers. If you find something of significant value in our videos, please consider supporting their production through our newly created Patreon account or through a one-time donation. The links are in the description below. Thank you.